Celebrimbor. In the same way that there's scenes with Adar in the first couple, and that's all kind of like mind games. Does he really know that I'm Sauron? I just kind of like play the scenes and everything else.
But you know, character like these, they usually, I mean, evoke negative kind of emotions. But yours is also, I mean, people are impressed with the kind of charm that you're portraying. So,
that's good.
Have you put any personal trait of yours?
There's no personal trait. No, I can't really.
That'll be too dark of a personal trait.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. It'd be. I don't think I'm allowed to say. I'd probably get arrested if I said yes.
How about you? Could you add any personal trait of yours to add life to your character?
Yeah, always. I think I try and, whatever role I'm playing, I always draw on possibly similarities of myself and the character I'm playing. So, yeah, I will always think about things and how I might approach it, or the other way around. You know, you always, inevitably, because you're the person playing the role,
right?
There's going to be elements of yourself in there.
Charles, also, you know, the series are often judged. They're compared amongst the seasons. Does that worry you? Are you nervous about it, or you think that's how it is supposed to be?
I'm not nervous. I'm very excited about season 2, as I was about season 1. But this particularly because of the story that the two of us have to tell. Right. We had a wonderful time shooting it, and I'm really looking forward to seeing how people enjoy it.
Does that make you worry that, you know, usually seasons are often compared amongst each other only? And
not really. I mean, it kind of gets to the point where you don't really like care, to be honest. As in, like, we care deeply about.
This is NDTV, and you're watching NDTV 24/7.
This is the US election show. I'm Gaurie Dwivedi. Let's start the show with headlines this evening. First up, just 22 days left for the mega election. Republican nominee Donald Trump is now neck to neck with Democrat candidate Kamala Harris in approval ratings. Latest polls reveal that Donald Trump is either tied or trails just marginally. Donald Trump and Kamala Harris are set to organize dueling events in the pivotal battleground state of Pennsylvania as they sprint to make their final set of pitches to voters. Not to be left behind, vice presidential candidates also making their final push. Tim Walz's campaigns in the key state of Wisconsin, the only state where Donald Trump is actually trailing, as J.D. Vance travels to Minnesota, Illinois, and Iowa. Both candidates make new promises. Harris unveils her opportunity agenda targeting black men. Donald Trump's Sunday announcement was aimed to hire more Border Patrol agents. All right, both candidates are now holding dueling events in the pivotal battleground state of Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania accounts for 19 electoral college votes. They are sprinting to make their final set of pitches to voters amidst an exceedingly tight race just weeks ahead of Election Day. Kamala Harris will deliver remarks in Erie, while Donald Trump hosts a town hall about the economy in the suburbs of Philadelphia. Meanwhile, Donald Trump has chipped away at Harris's national advantage, with recent polls now showing that both are neck to neck in the national polls, with Kamala Harris at 49% and Donald Trump at 46%. Let's also get in Natasha Israni to give us the very latest from New York and to get a sense of how things are unfolding and taking place in US. Natasha, take us through what's happening. You are on ground zero effectively. It's a bright sunny morning in New York, but who's actually getting his sunny side up is the key question.
Well, in New York, it's all very clear. New York is traditionally a blue state, has been a blue state. It is going to go to Kamala Harris, but New York is not a battleground state. And the focus really, as you were talking about earlier, is the battleground states, 7 of them, including Pennsylvania, which is one of the largest producers of those crucial electoral votes, like you said, 19. And yes, both Donald Trump as well as candidate Kamala Harris are in Pennsylvania. And this is where Kamala Harris is also seeking to get more support from black men and black voters. She did put out, now she has been criticized for not putting out as much policy details. And in the effort to remedy that, she has put out a paper explaining exactly how she plans to help black men as well. The black community cannot be taken for granted as definitely voting for Kamala Harris because she has black ancestry along with the Indian. So she's really going after them in Lake Erie, which is where she's going to be today. And Trump, as you mentioned, is going to be at a town hall also in the suburbs of Philadelphia, again trying to reach out to the white suburban voters. So that is a state to watch at now. It's really close to call. And I do want to point out also when it comes to all these different polls, there are so many polls, some from reputable news organizations, others from firms that are Republican leaning. And so when we look at these polls, one really has to average them out. And when one does that average out, in these 7 battleground states, it turns out to be that the difference sometimes is just less than a percentage point. So that's really close.
Indeed, it is. It's probably one of the closest set of elections in the US. Thanks much, Natasha, for giving us that latest from New York. In fact, Donald Trump and Kamala Harris are now wooing undecided voters ahead of the election. There are 22 days to go. We're going to keep playing that for you so that viewers know exactly just how tight this now race is and just how many few days are left. Donald Trump and Kamala Harris are now making a dash to the undecided voters. They are locked in a very tight race and all eyes now on the kind of early voting patterns that have taken place, which have actually been 45% down since the previous election, which was 2020, and it was the early voting patterns that really set Donald Trump back in the race in 2020. But how it's panning out right now, take a look at this report.
The race to the White House is as close as it gets, with one of the recent polls suggesting that Kamala Harris and Donald Trump are deadlocked.
By the way, we're leading in all the polls, but we have to win. Too big to rig. We're leading in the polls, but we have to do it too big to rig, because they are good at one thing. You know what that one thing is? Here goes cheating.
In times like this, we stand together as one nation. That is who we are. So, North Carolina, we have 23 days until Election Day. And we are nearing the home stretch. We are nearing the home stretch.
Both candidates spent the weekend trying to garner support among what is being perceived as must-have voting blocs, the undecided voters. According to reports, early voting, which tends to favor Democrats, is down 45% from the previous election years. This is a sign that there may be millions of undecided voters. According to a new report from the Pew Research Center, the results could come down to a mere 13% of undecided voters. According to the poll, 82% of voters are already certain about which candidate they will vote for. While 42% say they will support Harris, 40% indicate they will support Trump. 5% voters say they will vote for a third-party candidate. Both the campaigns have planned extensively to win over undecided voters, with much of Trump's strategy geared towards attracting this particular voting bloc, and Harris rolling out a policy proposal with the same bloc in mind. With Vishal Vivek, Bureau Report, NDTV World.
All right, so it's a tight race. Undecided voters hold the key to who is going to be the next occupant of White House. Let's get in our panel of experts. We have Ray Locker, who's an author and journalist, joining me from Washington. I have Pam Pryor, who's a former senior bureau official of the U.S. State Department under President Trump. She's joining me from Virginia. And we have Parul Khemka as well, who's a New Jersey State Director, South Asians for Harris. Thank you so much for taking out the time. Before I get to the two sides of the opinion, which is the Democrat and Republican. I want to start with Ray Locker, who is the independent voice on the show. Mr. Locker, then, you know, as things stand right now, this is an election where it's all going to be about the undecided voters. Extremely high amount of and high number of undecided voters. It was 18% till last month. It's still at a very high 13%. How do you see that in the context of a race which may just go down to the wire?
Well, I think the percentage is probably lower than that. And the difference is it's not that people are uncertain about whether they're going to vote for Trump or Harris. It's about whether they're uncertain about voting at all. And so the key challenge for each candidate is to get these people who are very soft voters to come out and vote this time. And that's what people are shooting for. Or they're like, okay, I know these people don't vote a lot. How can I reach them? And that's the big challenge. And I mean, each candidate is throwing out their various plans to get those people to the polls. I would say that I think probably the Democrats are a little better organized at the get out to vote effort since they do most of it themselves. And I think a lot of the Trump campaign has kind of farmed it out to third party groups. But, you know, we'll know on election day really who's going to doing the best job of that.
Hence, every election is so simple in its calculation. Get your voters to the booth. Every election, every part of the world, it just boils down to that. But, you know, let me ask the two ladies here then, you know, Parul, let me start with you, that there are now a lot of polls that are showing that Donald Trump has caught up, and the lead that Kamala Harris had and the bump up that she had right after her announcement, a lot of that ground Donald Trump seems to have covered.
So I think one thing to remember is that right now, at this point, none of the parties are going to ease up on their getting out the vote effort. So that's what we are going to try and do. And that's what we're doing on the ground. Like Mr. Locker said, much of it is actually done by the Democrats themselves. Again, undecided voters are also not a monolith. There are some who have policy concerns, some who have candidate concerns, and some who don't want to vote at all. And I think there are different strategies that we have to deploy to actually engage each of them. So, you know, Democrats we are on the ground, we are meeting these people, we are talking to them. And, you know, New Jersey is going to be canvassing heavily in Pennsylvania. And that's our plan. That's how we're going to proceed with this to get them out. I think polls are, you know, they're a good one piece of information, but, you know, we'll see election day.
Okay, but the beauty of those numbers is that when one camp likes them, they talk about it. When they don't like it, they don't talk about it. So I heard a lot of Democrats talking at length about those numbers because, of course, they were really favoring Kamala Harris after her initial bump up. Pam, respond to what the two other panelists said, which is that maybe undecided voters are not as high as some of these reports seem to indicate. And secondly, that the whole get your voter to the booth campaign, the Democrats seem to have got their machinery into action.
Yeah, I have to say, Ray, I agree with just almost everything you said. First off, I think the undecideds are really much smaller. You have to have lived under a rock for the last few years to not know who these candidates are. So we know who they are, we know what they stand for. And I also think that overall polls underperform. And this goes to what you said. Of course, being for Donald Trump, I'm going to throw a little rock at the polls. They always underperform in polling Trump. We saw this in 2016 when people were shocked that Donald Trump beat Hillary Clinton. So I don't know. I mean, polls may be a little bit of a bellwether, but I think overall it is, as everybody says, it's very close. And I do think that the Democrats have always been good at ground game. There are a lot of people that I think more than undecided are trying to figure out if they're going to vote. So I would tell you the most important thing to watch on election day is the weather, because undecideds will use any or what we call low propensity voters will use any excuse to stay home. And so if it's raining, that's not good. So it depends on intensity. As far as those not voting, I do know that there are, I happen to be an evangelical, and that of those 90 million self-identified evangelical, 40 million did not vote, 15 million aren't even registered. So there's been a real push in the churches to get out that vote.
Okay, so a lot of the evangelicals are, of course, trying to get people into the voting booths, but important factors, extraneous factors like weather and so many of those conditions play an important role. Quickly, it's a question I ask all three of you, which is that the next 20 days, where do you see the action? I know, we've talked about Pennsylvania and so on and so forth, but specifically 30 seconds each, starting with you, Ray, where do you see the next 20 days the focus is going to be?
I think you're going to see a lot in North Carolina, Georgia, and Pennsylvania. And I think if Harris wins North Carolina, it's over. Okay.
Parul?
I agree. The biggest pushes are going to be in those three battleground states, which, we are doing at the ground level and engaging with voters actively. So yes, those are going to be really close watches. We have to really watch for those races.
All right, Pam, what about you?
Pennsylvania, North Carolina, Georgia. I don't think I'm going to give North Carolina to Harris because of the disaster response from the Democrat governor has not been as good as people said, and people will be paying attention to that. Although there's a lot of problems in those western part of North Carolina, which tends to be redder. So we'll see what happens.
All right, we leave it there. Just 22 days and we'll know what really happens. Thank you so much, all of you, for taking out the time and speaking to me on this US election watch. Let's now turn our attention to the other big story that we are tracking. Well, there are cracks, or are there cracks, in the Democrat camp? There are now reports that are coming in that between Kamala Harris and Joe Biden, there have been now tensions and maybe some internal fissures may now be coming to the fore. Remember, it was actually Joe Biden's campaign headquarters at Wilmington in Delaware, which Kamala Harris inherited because there was less time for her to actually set up her own campaign headquarters, which she would have ideally done in California. But now as things stand, Joe Biden came out and made some comments. He also said, I'm back in, joked on dropping out of the election race. And what does this mean in terms of the Democrats being together, united, or could those friction and those fissures actually cost them an election which is so tight? Let's quickly play out some of this report. We come back and talk more on that.
American billionaires are breaking the bank ahead of the all-crucial November 5th polls. Recent fundraising reports reveal that Kamala Harris has received substantial contributions from a growing list of billionaires, surpassing those backing Donald Trump. According to Forbes, 76 billionaires are backing Kamala Harris, while 49 have been identified as supporters of Donald Trump. Speaking of the blue camp, among the 76 billionaires supporting Harris, 28 have donated $1 million or more to the groups backing her. In addition, 36 billionaires have contributed between $50,000 and $1 million. Some of Harris's biggest billionaire endorsers include former New York Mayor Michael Bloomberg, Atlanta Falcons owner and chairman Arthur Blank, co-founder and executive chairman of LinkedIn Reid Hoffman, and legendary Hollywood director Steven Spielberg. On the other hand, the red camp is also attracting heavy hitters, including the world's richest man, Elon Musk. Apart from Musk, 16 out of Trump's 49 billionaire supporters have reportedly donated between $50,000 and $1 million to the Republican campaign. They include the owner of the iconic Las Vegas Sands Casino and Resort, Miriam Adelson, the former CEO of World Wrestling Entertainment, Linda McMahon, and Tillman Fertitta, the owner of the Houston Rockets NBA team. As the election season enters its final stretch, the landscape of billionaire support could prove pivotal. Only time can tell if Kamala Harris's financial backing will translate into electoral success, or will Trump's advocacy for policies favorable towards billionaires will haunt her campaign. Arjun Samar Mahindran for NDTV World.
All right, that of course was giving an update in terms of the kind of donations that both camps have been able to raise. Now, a man in illegal possession of a shotgun and a loaded handgun was arrested at an intersection near Donald Trump's rally in California. Police have said that the 49-year-old suspect, which is Webb Miller, was driving a black SUV when he was stopped at a security checkpoint by officers who located the two firearms and a high-capacity magazine. Miller was then taken into custody without incident. That's what the police have said, and he was later released and told to U.S. Media he was a Trump supporter who was not planning to harm the Republican presidential candidate. This election doesn't seem to be full of surprises, as the U.S. Secret Service said that Donald Trump was not in any danger and that the incident did not impact protective operations.
What we do know is he showed up with multiple passports with different names, an unregistered vehicle with fake license plate, and loaded firearms. If you're asking me right now, I probably did have deputies that prevented the third assassination attempt.
All right, the story we were discussing about whether or not there are fissures in the Democrat campaign and could it cost them an election which is so very tight. Ray Locker, good to have you back. You know, this was a conversation that we must have, which is around that it's an election that is so tight. It's an election that can go down to the wire, and any misstep could actually become a huge concern. Is that something that the Democrat camp need to be very wary of?
Well, I think anytime you have inklings of fissures in your campaign, it's a problem. I don't think it's a huge problem because I think most Democrats look at, say, oh, I have a difference with this other person in my party, and then there's Donald Trump. Well, they're going to go against Donald Trump. They're going to do what they need to do. And by the way, when you look at Trump, he's a guy whose own vice president will not vote for him. Dick Cheney, previous Republican vice president, will not vote for him. So there are definitely schisms inside the Republican Party that are as great or greater than anything that's in the Democratic Party. I mean, you have a number of people who voted for Nikki Haley in Republican primaries who say they're not going to vote for Donald Trump. And he needs every voter he can get. So look, whenever you have those problems in a campaign, you want them to go away. You want everybody to join hands and do what you need them to do to win. And so on the Democratic side, yeah, it's an issue. I don't think it's a huge issue, though.
Then you know, this is a campaign that Kamala Harris inherited from Joe Biden. You know, it was not a campaign that she started up from the beginning. So there are some legacy issues. Do you think them coming in the way of the strategy for the next 3 weeks?
No, I don't. I mean, look, Biden had a good ground game set up. He had his failings as a candidate. We saw them in that debate in June, and that's why he dropped out. But he had a good ground game set up in the states where it mattered. And you look at North Carolina, and they had a good ground game set up there. And in the polls, even before he dropped out, Biden was pretty competitive in North Carolina. I think that's going to be true in all the battleground states. You look at organized labor in Michigan, I think they're in good shape for Democrats. Same in Nevada, where you have a lot of hotel and service workers. They do very well for Democrats. So I think that it bodes well for them. But, you know, there could be erosion in some of the union vote for that goes to Trump. So everything's got to be hitting perfectly for each candidate for them to win.
Then lastly, what do you make of these comments that come in from Mr. Biden and his campaign, especially at a time when polls seem to suggest that it's not a race where where Kamala Harris has the election in her bag. It's not like that. So how do you read these comments that are being made?
Well, I just read it as typical stuff in politics. I mean, I've covered a lot of campaigns over the last 40 years, and you see them time and time again. And even before I was covering campaigns, you go back and read history, people are sniping one way or the other. I would have done this differently. I would have done this better. So it doesn't surprise me. I don't think it's going to, influence really any voters. If you're a Democrat and you're not going to vote for Kamala Harris based on this, then shame on you, I mean, it's just not that important.
All right. That pretty much sums up how this election is turning out to be. Ray Locker, thank you so much for speaking to me on US Election Watch. 22 days left for mega election. Keep watching this show, keep watching this space, because it has all the updates, latest developments. Thanks so much for watching this edition.
What's wrong with the car? It's okay, lads. I'm with the AA. Ah, Bombay mix.
Because the AA has more expert patrols across the country, you'll be back on the road in no time. No wonder more people choose the AA. Join today.
During World War II, my great-granddad, George Arthur Roberts, was one of the everyday people who volunteered in the fire service and became heroes by night. He was awarded the British Empire Medal. It was thanks to my great-granddad and his fellow volunteers that there was a city to wake up to.
Discover the untold stories of World War II in millions of records and bring your backstory to life with Ancestry.
This is the MSF hospital you can help build. This is the equipment you can help buy in the hospital you can help build. This is the doctor you can help train using the equipment you can help buy in the hospital you can help build. This is the medicine you can help supply, given by the doctor you can help train using the equipment you can help buy in the hospital you can help build. These are the patients you help survive, treated with the medicine you help supply, given by the doctor you help train, using the equipment you help buy in the hospital you can help build. These are the lives you help rebuild, the patients you help survive, treated with the medicine you help supply, given by the doctor you help train, using the equipment you help buy in the hospital you can help build. This is help that lasts. With regular donations, you help us provide long-term medical care. Please donate £10 a month by searching MSF Now. That's MSF Now.
Sitting quietly while your car is made all shiny. Downtime can be just fine too. Ready meal is piping. Waterproof, on the loo. Just enjoy your back tattoo. Tea break, face break. Maybe even watch the ad break. Sometimes it's not time for some tombola, right? It's enjoying lasagna time, chilling with a book time, or time to visit your nan time. Put the phone down.
We know that living with diabetes can make daily life a challenge, and we're here to help.
I felt very low with the diagnosis and very lonely as well, and embarrassed.
I think people don't necessarily realise the impact that being diabetic can have on you, and the amount of extra decisions you have to make a day through carb counting every single thing you eat.
If you're struggling with the everyday challenges diabetes can bring, become a Diabetes UK member today. Receive this informative welcome pack and Balance magazine.
Balance magazine has been very good in giving me tips to manage my diabetes on a day-to-day basis.
One of the things I was recommended to do was exercise. What motivated me was my love of dance, and I got that back.
Join a community that really understands. Call 0800 035 7605 or go online to become a member for just £3 a month.
As a dad, I know life's unpredictable. It's all fun and games until it's not.
You okay?
I want my kids to always be looked after. That's why I'm not putting things off anymore and protecting the life we've built by calling Smart Insurance.
Hi, how can I help?
Hi, like a quick quote, please.
Okay.
You can choose a benefit amount up to £750,000 depending on your age.
Brilliant.
If you're a UK resident aged 18 to 64, you can apply with just a few health and lifestyle questions. For £250,000 of cover, the price starts at just £14.77 a month.
That's less than I thought. And could help my wife pay off the mortgage.
With our Smart Family Guarantee and 99% of claims having been paid, you'll have peace of mind.
That's good to know.
You'll also receive a 100% advance in the event of terminal illness and 10% cashback on your first year's premiums. That's the Smart Cashback. Plus, you get your choice of a free £125 gift card.
Protect the life you've built the smart way. To get a free quote today, call our specialist UK team on 0800 977 6797 or visit smartinsurance.co.uk.
I've been thinking, I want to plan my funeral so it feels more like a celebration. My parents always said I was born dancing. I just love it. Bhangra,